Hi, I'm Yemisi Cedar. Welcome to Team Parenting Tips. Today's focus is on dads. I have a heartfelt message for you dads. Firstly, I want to salute you for tuning in today. I want to thank you for all the things you've already done, all the desires you have for your child, and I want to encourage you to keep going and not to give up, because giving up isn't an option. Your child needs you. Now, I'm going to start by sharing some of the impacts my dad not being present in my life and what it had on me. My parents separated when I was two, and my dad visited me about 4 or 5 times when I was at my foster parents' house, and each time he'd come with a gift. Even though I wanted him to hug me and reach out to me and talk to me and affirm me, there was a conflict because mum had groomed me at that stage not to like him. Mum groomed me to hate him. I knew my mum had the best intentions for me. She loved me, but because she had so many unresolved issues with my dad, even with the best of intentions, she sowed the seeds that made me hate my dad. And so even though he was this amount of times he came to visit, I was withdrawn and wouldn't reach out to him. And so I had this conflict that never left me. It took years and years as an adult for me to reconcile and to be able to engage in a healthy way with the opposite sex. Now, what did the impact of my dad not being around, what did it have on me? And what impact does it have on other young people, whether it's a girl or a guy? So I'm talking from a female perspective now. Now, for me, because dad wasn't around to hug me, there was this sense of touch that I was lacking. And so when my mum died when I was 18, I went from one relationship to the next with men who were much older than me, solely because I was seeking affection. I was yearning to be hugged. I was yearning for a sense of worth and value. And when one relationship ended, I went to the next. And before I knew it, I led a life of promiscuity. The other impact my dad not being around had on me was a lack of confidence. I just constantly, whether it was in terms of selecting friends, the kind of friendships I had, the kind of jobs that I applied for, and how I fulfilled my job roles, was always limited due to poor sense of worth and value. I was a yes person. I was one of those friends that if my friend said do something, even though it could be wrong for me, it could be toxic, just to feel accepted, just to feel a sense of belonging, I would do whatever my friends told me to do. And also the kind of jobs that I did, I would go the extra mile. I was someone who just would perform and do beyond measure just to feel a belonging and just to get that sense of affirmation for the boss to say, well done, Yemisi, well done. I love working in environments where my boss was male, because that affirmation that I'd get from my manager meant that I felt validated. And then also, I didn't have healthy relationships with men, full stop. Aside from the fact that in terms of sexual relationships, I became promiscuous, but in a professional environment, I became a yes person, the person who was who I didn't know how to say no if I was given unreasonable job tasks, or I just went the extra mile to please my boss. When I started going to church, I became a people pleaser. I wanted to be my pastor to favor me. All of this was wrong motives, purely because I was seeking affirmation. I got exploited for the attention that I was seeking, because often I'd go out of my way to please other people and in the process denying myself. And the other thing was, I just lacked the ability to make quality decisions, because I always second guessed my worth and value. I just felt I wasn't good enough for the things that I was doing. And so often I'd settle for less job roles. For promotions, I wouldn't put myself forward because I didn't think I qualified. These are just some of the impacts that it had on me. Now, as a mentor, one of the impacts that I've seen happen in the lives of young people is for young boys, for example. when they're not getting affirmation, when they're not having dad actively involved in their lives, they become susceptible and vulnerable to gang grooming, and then they end up making poor choices. They end up getting involved in drugs that ultimately get spiral. They don't reach their potentials. In the worst extreme scenario, they end up in jail or could actually cost them their lives. And then for girls, they end up getting involved with wrongful relationships. They could get pregnant like I did. I got pregnant intentionally. I got pregnant because I just didn't want to live alone. I just didn't feel that that life was worth living without someone to love me unconditionally. And I thought, well, the answer to that was a child, because a child's not going to abandon me. I wasn't thinking about my daughter that I had, about her needs, the fact that I did not yet have the skill set to be a good parent. So naturally, I made lots of mistakes. It was solely self-focused, me getting myself pregnant. So these are just some of the impacts that happens in the child not having a dad around. And so what benefit can that bring your child? Now, I've already said the opposite. So the positive things, you being involved in your child means your child can get affirmation. Find ways to reach your child, whether it's with social media, a telephone, text. Let your child know how special and how valuable they are. Every child needs a hug, no matter how old they are. Let them know that their life isn't an accident. Even if you're with the spouse or in the relationship or not, your child needs to hear from you how special they are. But also one-to-ones. You might be busy doing life, but carve out time to have one-to-ones, whether it's taking your child out for a meal, going to their activities, parents' evening. All of those are good, but also just sit me down time where you get to know your child. Hear their heart, hear how their week has been, what their fears are, what their concerns are, what they're excited about, what they're buzzing over, what questions and what direction they need. Be there, be present. Don't project yourself on them. Don't make assumptions. Your child needs you to listen, to be heard, because if you give your child the air that they seek, they will not be easily led to hear the voices that are toxic, that will lead them down the wrong path. But also, your child needs to know that they can trust you. So if you say you're going to turn up, if you're going to say you're going to do something, even if it's hurtful, because parenting isn't easy, anything worth its salt is hard. Don't say yes to your child if you're going to let them down. You want to build credibility, you want to build trust. Be that go-to person that your child needs, because there's a role that only you can fulfill as a dad. And also your child needs direction. Your child needs guidance. We don't all have the answers. So go to these places where you can, get the answers, fill in the void, fill in the gaps where you don't have all the answers. Get developed in those areas. Ask questions from someone who's doing well in those areas. But make sure you're in a position to give your child direction. Get to give them guidance in areas where they're lacking. But also, your child might need some extra educational help. They may need some mentoring. They may need some sharpening in their particular giftings. Come alongside the other parent. It's about the child. Put aside your differences, get mediation if that's what you need, and just decide and determine as both parents to say what matters is the child's future, what matters is about their destiny, and then being able to achieve and reach their highest potentials. I see many young kids who are highly intelligent but are constantly limited because they second guess themselves. They don't think they're good enough. They don't think they have the goods, and they have friendships that are not good for them, all because they feel they're not good enough, because one of their parents isn't around, one of their parents is not affirming them, or you've got the other parent who is, but then there's still that void, because every child needs a dad. It doesn't matter what people say. We need our dads, we need our parents. There's our mums, there's a collaboration, there's a synergy that both of you bring to the table. Another thing that's important is to provide. And when I say provision, it's not, you don't have to break a bank, but your child needs to know that if they have a need, that you can supply it. Because the other thing that tends to happen is, like me now, I started dating men just for what I could get, because there was this thing in me where I thought, well, my dad never supplied this for me. He never provided. So I just had this innate thing where, even though I could do it for me, I needed a dad who can do it. And that's why that term sugar daddy comes into play. It's not a myth. It really is that inner being designed a dad to provide, because dads, you're wired up to be providers, and it's tailored to that child's need. It's not about giving your, just throwing things at your child in a materialistic way. It's about, okay, what this child needs, but at the same time being able to provide their emotional needs, being able to provide their practical needs, and being able to also provide their spiritual needs as well. And how do you do that? In terms of emotional needs, being able to have those open conversations, those dialogues where your child can be vulnerable and your child knows they're not going to be judged. The spiritual needs, where you're able to pray for your child, you're able to give them moral guidance and direction. Your physical needs, where everything your child needs that is within your needs, you're able to provide, but also to protect, that your child needs to know that you are there and able to protect them in whichever shape or form that looks like. Whether your child is being bullied, whether they're struggling at school, they need to know that you're a safe place, that you're not going to judge them, you're not just going to come down on them and to nitpick, but they know that you've got their backs. It's so important. The other thing, as a dad, it's like showing them, how to do things, especially like, for example, with my son. I was quite fortunate that in areas where his dad couldn't, that he was gifted in football, and so he was surrounded by solid men who would coach him, life skills, team dynamics, discipline and focus, so that even though he didn't have his dad present in his life all the time, that he had focus, he had direction, and he was able to develop his giftings and talents. And by the age of 16, he was working, he was studying, and the rest was history. So it's important, dads, it might be challenging being able to come to a conclusion about what works best, but don't alienate yourself from the other parent. It's about the child. Get the mediation, sit down, have the conversation. And if that still fails, you still have social media. Message your child, write a letter, affirm them, let them know they're special, because I promise you that child will grow up one day, and then what you didn't do or could have done will come up. The conversation always does. But what matters is your child obtaining their highest potentials in life, and your child needs you. So I want to encourage you that what you're doing already, don't give up. Go get help. Help is available. And if you are in a relationship, don't leave it all to just mum, because that child needs your voice, needs your presence, needs your sounding board, and needs to know that you're there for them too. Hope this brought you value. Do share, like with someone else. In the next video, I'm getting a dad who works in a youth offending team, who be able to give you a male perspective as well as a professional perspective by seeing it all in the lives of young people who, I have to say, enough is enough, who are going down the road of street life that leads into criminality, or they're just not reaching their potentials, they're not working, they're not studying, they're just they're not reaching their potentials. And so I hope this brought you value, so make sure you tune into the next one. Thanks. Bye now.